Awesome. Cool. Hey, it's Thomas Mulready from CoolCleveland.com, and we are here at an undisclosed location for a house concert in Cleveland Heights, and we're here with legend Jon Langford.
Legend in my own lunchtime.
You know, you've done so much. I don't even know where to start. You know, if you go to Wikipedia and you click the button and ask it to read it for you, you can do that with a little Siri voice.
Oh, it does?
It does, and it calls the band the Mekons. And it's like something
How good they know what they're doing then. I call it the Mekons as well.
Yeah. Well, when you first conceived of that, what was going through your mind? How serious was it?
Nothing whatsoever. It was, we were art students in Leeds, and it was just a kind of a we'd been granted permission by the Sex Pistols to have a band, because it seemed apparent that you didn't have to have any musical talent to be in a band. In punk, you just had to have a bit of attitude and the energy to do it, and you could make your own entertainment. So, but we had no idea it would go on for. This is the 40th anniversary of the Mekons this year, so that's alarming on many levels. But no, the name Mekons was just it was from a comic book. It was Dan Dare, his arch enemy was the Mekon, and there was only one Mekon. So the band was originally called Dan Dare and the Mekons. But then nobody wanted to be Dan Dare, so it became the Mekons.
So it had a political element to it right from the beginning, and it had a performance art element too. You know, we did a big festival here, performance art, and you've really blended that through your entire artistic career.
Well, we were art students, you know, in the late '70s, and it was pretty grim in the north of England. And yeah, the first time I think I really met the Mekons, they were doing some sort of, they do these kind of like drinking performance art pieces, and I think the very first gig, I was in the band, but I didn't bother to go to the first gig. And Andy Gill from the Gang of Four played drums, and I missed it. But they had I think they had a giant sofa, or so the legend is, that there was a giant sofa with the word spaceship written on the side, and then they were pushed onto the stage on a sofa with spaceship written on it, because it was a kind of science fiction thing, the Dan Dare and the Mekons element. But yeah. The one thing about punk rock was it was very political, you know, from God Save the Queen to the Clash to, you know, what we were doing. But pretty soon we kind of like got less interested in the big political statements and more interested in the kind of personal politics stuff. So, because we were wimpy art students, and we wouldn't know how to smash the system if we, you know, were given the chance. So.
Were you really taking the piss out of the Clash? Was that really where the first single "Never Been in a Riot" came from? Yeah.
There was a song called White Riot, and I love the Clash, but I wish they never had that song, because they were in London, where that made sense to have a White Riot, because it's like in solidarity with West Indian youth who were fighting the police at the Notting Hill Carnival and stuff. But yeah, that song in the context of Leeds in 1977 was different, you know. It became like an anthem for fascist youth who were battling people like us and Asian people and West Indian people on the streets. So you know, and it was kind of weird at the time that you could have fascist punk rock, but it did exist in the north of England for a while. So it stopped when the ska thing started, because everybody realized it was cooler. It's cooler to be into the music than into the fascist politics. So, you know, but we were very involved with the Rock Against Racism campaign, and did tours with that. And we played a lot with reggae bands, and bands like Misty and Roots and the Ruts and Sound Systems up in Leeds. So, but it was a battle. There was a lot of violence. It was quite shocking, actually. We finally kind of stopped playing live because somebody got stabbed at a Mekons Gang of Four gig, you know. It was just like heavy, so we scuttled off to play in Europe, you know. Milk it for a few years in Europe.
We're making money at this. Let's keep it up.
We weren't really making that much money, but we didn't know what to do. We just realized it was just a very unpleasant scene. So,
when did American country music enter the picture for you? Was it there all along, or did you have some revelation along the way? Did somebody introduce you to it?
I really didn't like country music. I thought I didn't. I had no idea what it was. I thought it was like the stuff that you had on like late night Irish TV shows that we used to get in Wales, with George Hamilton IV and Boxcar singing sentimental songs and basically old people conservative music. So I had no interest in it whatsoever. Then I realized Johnny Cash was country, and I loved Johnny Cash. Then I realized like most of the Tom Jones songs that I liked, you know, Green Green Grass at Home was like the Welsh national anthem, and that's just a straight country and western song. But really it wasn't until the mid 80s when we got into like Merle Haggard and Jerry Lee Lewis and people like that.
So you did your own research basically. It wasn't in your blood from.
Well, I think it was. I think Wales, you know. And the more I think about Tom Jones and those songs like Delilah as well and Green Green Grass at Home, I don't know. There's a link to country and western music. You know, like people living in little villages with coal mines up the valleys, you know, near where I grew up. That music would ring a bell. Country music's very inclusive, I think. It's very, you know, you go as far afield as like the outback in Australia, and you know the music that the Aboriginal people out there sing. It's like they do country music, country and gospel, you know.
And it's folk music. It's the music of the folk. And is punk was punk rock really folk music for people just that happen to grow up in that era, that time frame?
We didn't know that at the time, but actually that's what we kind of worked out, because we thought it was year zero, you know, in 1978 we were inventing the wheel, but really it was you know, what the Mekons was doing wasn't, you know, we weren't the first people to do that. We were pushing the idea that you didn't have to know how to play to be in a band to an extreme, and doing it yourself. But there's people been doing that for a long time, and we found all sorts of echoes and resonance with different things that happened down through history. So, and it was all sorts of resistance music, folk music that comes from the grassroots up, you know, as opposed to other types of music which kind of come down. You know, it's for us. It was, you know, there was a learning process right the way through, and country music to me became like a branch of folk music, and there was lots of comparisons to. I like the idea of, I didn't really feel like I could play blues or reggae music convincingly, but when I pick up a guitar and played a Johnny Cash song in a sort of honky tonk in Chicago when we first started going over there, it was like, hang on, it kind of makes sense, you know. So.
And then visual art has been in your life from, again, art school days, right? And at some point you brought sort of the two together to where now it's your oeuvre, it's your life work.
Yeah, it's been moving to the States in the early 90s. I'd kind of abandoned the visual art thing. I was at art school and that seemed really boring, and playing in a punk band seemed really exciting. But after 15 years of doing that and the various sort of thrills and spills of being on major labels and feeling like a corporate employee, and you know, your plaster cast made. Although that was a high point, but you know, but there were low points as well. You know, just the whole process of doing it. I suddenly went, you know, I was isolated when I moved to Chicago, and art is a more solitary activity, I've discovered. We've always tried to make it more collaborative, but it's quite hard to do. But yeah, I got back into the visual arts in America, and when Tony Fitzpatrick, a really great artist in Chicago, asked me to do an exhibition, he'd seen some of my illustration stuff and stuff I'd done for fanzines and stuff. I had to think about what I was going to do, and I wanted to make art kind of like about what I've been involved in, and I was very fascinated with sort of honky-tonk culture and the music business, and very shocked to get to America and find that had been kind of discarded, and that was something that Nashville was embarrassed about, and the stuff that I loved wasn't on the radio anymore. I met Johnny Cash and he said, you know, I don't get played on the radio. George Jones doesn't get played. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? You know, they were all in the 50s then. You know, when I met Cash, he was like 50. He was my age, and he was on a one-way trip to Branson, Missouri, and he was pissed off about it. And he was irrelevant, you know, commercially and to everyone really. You go to a Johnny Cash show in 1990, it was a load of pensioners there. You know,
9 Inch Nails.
Yeah, till the Rick Rubin thing happened, and he got, he had his swan song, which was beautiful, I thought, but he really was totally neglected, and I couldn't get my head around it, and I came over here thinking it was, all this amazing culture that had come out, and it was, it really had been discarded. A lot of the stuff I was interested in, even the jazz and the blues as well. In Chicago, a lot of the blues music, people I thought were gods, they were kind of just like, yeah.
You ever think of going to Nashville or making a home there, or was that just not really anything of interest to you?
It's interesting, when we bought our house in Chicago, we were like looking to buy a house, and I said, if we buy a house in Chicago, look what we can get in Nashville. This is about 15 years ago. Yeah. And we could have bought like a 9-bedroom house with a pool in Nashville. Now I couldn't afford a condo in Nashville now. It's really changed. But I go to Nashville a lot, and it is one of the, Nashville and Austin are the towns that, it's strange because I always thought the States, for me was the coasts, when we came over first. And then we play in Chicago, but it was always San Francisco, LA, and the East Coast. But with the visual art thing, it's really, the kind of corridor that opened up was Austin, Nashville, Chicago, and then New Orleans as well. So those are the places I mostly, do my work, and those are big music capitals. So it's great. But yeah, I've had to do this weird thing, like having a family, and having to earn a living, and having to juggle, throw many plates in the air. I do these like weekends, like this weekend, where I bring a bunch of art with me, play a couple of gigs, and I try to combine the two things basically.
And you have a new, speaking of another plate in the air, you've got a new record out with a new band that you're working with.
Yeah, we did a record with a band called Bad Luck Jonathan, which is, I think, it's fantastic. But it's kind of a throwback to the sort of music I was listening to before I ever thought I would be a musician. So it's the kind of stuff that, the sort of space rock like Hawkwind and Man and bands like that, what I really loved in the 70s. And we met Phil Wanshu, who lives in Seattle, who was in Whiskey Town and in the Jesse Sykes and band as well, and he was really into that stuff as well, and sort of kraut rock and just weird stuff from the 70s that I'd kind of forgotten I liked.
You were into like David Bowie and really glam rock at the time, right? It was the mid-70s.
Yeah, I loved all that, but that happened. I was really young when that happened. It was like, I was like 12, 13 when that was going on, and then when punk didn't happen until I was about 18, 19. So there was this whole gap in the middle where we really had to scratch around, and we were deeply, underground. We were into real kind of like, Hawkwind was kind of a cult band. Man were Welsh, so I liked them. But, there was lots of stuff like prog, but I didn't like the prog rock. I didn't like the heavy metal. I wasn't into that pompous kind of virtuoso-y type stuff. I was always looking for things that were, I don't know. I discovered John Cale around that time. It's weird. I discovered John Cale, but I didn't know who the Velvet Underground were. No. I saw Dr. Feelgood on the TV, and I couldn't believe that there was a white band with short hair and straight trousers playing 3-minute songs, and that was like a startling to me in 1975. So I instantly fell in love with them. So
same stuff we were listening to here.
Yeah.
Do you mind playing a little something? You got something that you want to do for us here, real quick?
Play you a song. I don't know what I'd play. Maybe I'll do a Waco Brothers song, because it's been my staple. History is written by the winner. This is a loser's song. I took this job in the summer, never saw the winter rolling on. I never thought it would end in a second, a burnout smoking wreck. Expectations and ambition, just a rope around my neck. I broke my back to earn a crust. I saw my dreams die in the dust. Now I'm walking on hell's roof looking at the flowers. Walking on hell's roof looking at the flowers. All in bloom, red, yellow, and blue. So sweet and true. There's nothing better to do. Well, I'm not hiding, come and find me. What am I doing? There's no need to remind me. Walking on hell's roof looking at the flowers. in the A to B and the miles per hour, keeping out of reach of the higher power. Where the bees are buzzing in the April showers. The spoils belong to the victor. This is a consolation song. Your life is science fiction. In a flash then you'll be gone. No more trials and no more troubles. Bad luck and bursting bubbles. Walking on hell's roof looking at the flowers. Walking on hell's roof looking at the flowers. We've been walking on hell's roof looking at the flowers.
Thank you so much, Jon, for taking time here. Good luck tonight. Have some fun in Cleveland. Thank you.
Always do.
Hey, it's Thomas Mulready from CoolCleveland.com. Have a great week in Cool Cleveland.